Hello, everybody. My name is Mariette Abraham, CEO and founder of Kina, the Hub for Data and Insights in Personalized Nutrition. And today I'm joined by Magnolia Patel. Is it Patel?
Yes.
Yeah.
Patel.
And the idea, it's our first one. It's our first fireside chat, we'd like to call it. And the goal of these conversations are really to elevate women in science, elevate women in health, elevate women in nutrition, and really give voice to those who have not had a voice or had an online voice in the scientific nutrition wellness space for a very, very long time. So this is kind of experimental, and we want to talk about really hot topics that both cover our own learnings, our own experience, our own insights. So it's not an interview, it's a conversation. So I'll ask Magnolia questions, she'll ask me questions about, the history and our journey and how we got to this far. And yeah, so Magnolia, I'll leave you to introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Magnolia, and I'm a founder of Genes and Wellness. I'm a human geneticist. That's what I just feel really on my spot, I think. And right now I work helping women to, uncover their DNA information just in genetic testing and nutrigenomics to, up-level their health. I love what I do. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Good start probably would be to talk about your background, to your journey. How did you get to be a geneticist? Like how did you get to the intersection of, nutrition and health in women rather than maybe getting a lab job? So talk us through that.
Right. Yeah, right. It was a long journey. I think it started when I was kind of 15. I was watching a documentary and Discovery Channel about the Human Genome Project. And I was like, it was kind of like a love at first sight, because I was like, oh, I was thinking what I'm going to do to study in university. I was thinking to engineering because I did like math. And then I was like, oh my God, this is fascinating how, the molecule of life is going to uncover these secrets of us. And it seems like for me, like a fantasy. And that day I decided that this is my path. This is what I wanted to do. And I'm going to do what it takes in order to, understand this. So I was born in Peru, so in Latino America. So things are not with the whole technology. So I needed to put my hands on first language, English, and then have a good grades. I did have good grades in high school. So I had to, keep it up and start thinking how I'm gonna do this and going to probably the United States or somewhere else in order to get a PhD and so on. So, the first thing I studied biotechnology, the more closer I could get. And then I did my master's in the University of Sao Paulo, in the best university of Latin America in Brazil. And then I moved to the Netherlands into Groningen, UMCG, in the medical department. And I was studying in complex genetic traits with celiac disease. And that's where I start questioning, the epigenetics and the food and so how. And at that point, I was in a crossroad, because at the same time that I did understand genetics and rare diseases and so on, I was not taking care of myself. I was a little overweight, I was a little tired, I was a little unhappy. And I said, like, no, this is not how I picture my life with. I was in a really nice lab learning with best colleagues and so on, but I was not happy. And then I decided, I took a long walk through the canals in Amsterdam. And I said, like, no, I think I need to make a turn, and I want to start from scratch and start learning nutrition. And that's when I decided to enter to nutrigenomics and start going to move from the medical department to the nutritional department. And I moved to Canada to study nutrigenetics and uncover new variants related to some vitamins. And that's how the journey went. And then during the pandemic, I noticed that I had the opportunity to start guiding or like helping people using the nutrigenetic testing. And I really enjoy it. For me, it's like magic, really, to being able to somebody who don't understand things about their DNA and explain them and hold the hand and say like everything is fine, there's nothing wrong with you, and then explain what the variations are, what changes they need to do. And I find myself on that, and that's why I decided to go for consulting, and that's where I am now.
Wow. So you consult with women directly to help them to change their habits, health habits, dietary habits, and empowering, and you use nutrigenetics as part of as a data point to personalize their diets. Very interesting. And how has your traditional training helped you or hindered you? Because using your kind of lab skills and then using a more coaching approach, that is also something that, it's a different set of skills. So where did you pick up those skills?
Definitely the academic work is very different from the business one. And I was not prepared from that transition in the beginning. It was totally outside my comfort zone. I did gain a lot of skills, but I couldn't see my transfer skills using in business. I don't know why. So it took me a time to really gain and recognize how I was in some way prepared, the product management, time management, information management, strategic planning, or the creative thinking. I already have it from my engineer background and so on. But in business, I needed to reach new skills related to marketing or communication or copywriting, or even emotional intelligence with your clients. And so I took some courses and related to business, who made me feel more familiar and comfortable. And it took me like a year that I was like, okay, this is it. I planned it, and I was able to transition from that. Tell me about you. How did you manage? First, your journey, because I'm really curious about your journey.
My journey was also I always think about using being unhappy as a way to make your next move. So being unhappy is not such a bad thing, because it sparks you and inspires you to do something about it if you're that kind of a person. And that's exactly the kind of person that I am. So I'm not really one to be afraid of the unknown. And I think that is kind of, I would say, as part of my upbringing. So I was born in South Africa, but at the age of 4, we had to move to Europe because of apartheid. So my father was very politically involved. And of course, it was a danger to our lives to be there. And so we had to leave. So we were refugees. And so my father got a bursary to study, and then first in Germany and then to the Netherlands, which already planted the seed that you just pack up everything and then you go to a school where you don't understand the language, and then you pick it up, and then you go to another country and another school and learn another language, and then you pick it up and you're making new friends. And so this transition makes you very adaptable. And so when it came to high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And one of the teachers said, because at that stage I was playing volleyball, I was teaching swimming, I liked science, and she said, there's this degree called dietetics and you might like it, and it combines kind of nutrition with science, and maybe that'll fit you. And so I thought, okay, well, nothing much can happen. I actually wanted to study psychology, and my dad wouldn't let me. So I ended up going to university, study dietetics. I didn't love it. I would say I didn't love it. I wouldn't say, yes, this is definitely, I did it because although I'm not scared of giving up, I am a finisher. So I thought I'm going to finish this and then I will see what comes next. And so it was my dream to then say, okay, I'm going to finish university, and then I'm going to get a clinical job as a dietitian in the hospital setting. And then So I worked really hard and I got my first job, then moving to London to do clinical dietetics, working in a hospital. But I very quickly realized, probably within 3 months, that this is not going to be my life forever. And so at that point, I decided I need to diversify my skill set. And the only way that is going to make me more marketable is not to become more specialized in nutrition, but actually do something that can be applied anywhere. So I spoke to somebody and I went to an open day and they said, MBA is for you. You need to apply for an MBA. And basically at that time, I didn't think I was, I had the right skills or the right knowledge or was smart enough to do an MBA. And I thought I should do a certificate in management or something. And they said, no, man, don't waste your time. You already have a degree. Just jump in and do an MBA. And I'm so glad I took that advice and I did the hard work, because it really helped me, then open up a completely different perspective. Rather than the scientific perspective, it opened up the business, perspective, and bring out that kind of creativity and that kind of a mindset of being more entrepreneurial. And while I was studying, I was working in the hospital setting, and then I took a management job. So that helped me in the, to apply what I was learning in a clinical nutrition setting, in a healthcare setting. So that then really sparked it. And then I thought, well, if I'm finished with the MBA, I'm going to go into management consulting, healthcare consulting, and I'm going to work for like a big company or whatever. And luckily, I had always very good mentors around me. And one of the mentors said to me, in the hospital, I was always starting new projects. I did things in different ways. I started new, approached workflows in different ways. And he said to me, your soul is gonna die if you go in that direction, because it doesn't match your personality. And at that stage, I didn't then quite know what I was going to do. But then an opportunity came up, which then opened up, an opportunity to combine my nutrition knowledge with my business, skills and knowledge in the industry setting. And that's what made the transition from healthcare to industry into medical nutrition, because I was using the product anyway in the hospital setting, because I knew that well. I knew the translation of the science very well, and I knew the application very well, and I could explain it and teach it and present it in a business setting very well. So that kind of opened my eyes to, hey, I can actually do this, but then that was a very big machine kind of a setting, and it didn't match my personality. And so I said, I need to quit this as well, which then started me onto a path of consulting. And once I then was in charge of my own timetable, my own learning, my own, what I wanted to do, I then came upon, personalized nutrition, which of course we've been doing all along, but it's more the technology that is new. So it's more tech-enabled personalized nutrition. And I said, this is it. This is it. This is going to be my thing. I get it. I love it. I wake up and I'm pumped and I know exactly what I need to do, what I need to say. But finding my voice, I would say, was the hardest part. So it was kind of, I'm not a scientist because I didn't go in the specialist route. I'm not a business person because I didn't go that route. I didn't go the management consultant route. I'm not a practitioner because that's also not what I've been there and done that. I'm not that. So then finding what is your your unique voice, what is it that you stand for? So I think it's a very easy phrase, but I think it's a very difficult one to find and to be able to verbalize. So it took me, I would say, a good 10 years to say, Kina is it. That's my journey. So for me, personalized nutrition now in the industry is, we are really at a stage where we are at the intersection of nutrition, health, technology, but also all the societal impact that this has on how people choose food and how they behave around, their health and their attitudes and perceptions around their health. But just to go a little bit back, so by 2012, 2013, I decided personalized nutrition is the thing. This is what I was going to do. But there was no industry. There were like 5 companies in the industry, and I need to bide my time, and I really need to think about how this industry is going to evolve, because I don't know. I'm confident that it's going to evolve, but it's not going to evolve like next year. So that's when I embarked on a PhD, and that's now the thing that I'm going to do. And so that really gave me another different perspective on what is required from an academic perspective, the critical skills that you need to have, the analytic skills that you need to have, formulating your hypotheses and being able to validate your choices, your decisions, and being able to write it in a clear and concise way. And I think that was a very bruising experience. I think anybody now, my dad did his PhD, and I didn't really know what that was because I was young. But as you learn, you think, oh, okay, people with a PhD must be like really smart, or I changed my mind now. I believe now that people who have PhDs, they can be stamped and crushed and, insulted. And if they come out the other way, they are resilient. So I stopped thinking they are really smart. And I now believe that they are just really resilient, because you are so bruised. But you come out better the other side. I think that's what it is. You come out so, my supervisor was so great, both of them, that when you get a manuscript back and you just see red, I mean, it's enough to make anybody give up. But, if you can go through it, and that's really helped me in the business to be resilient, wake up and think, how can I attack this from another way? How can I go on? How can I do something that's new? How can I validate and stand by what I believe is what's going to happen? And that's what got me here, really. That's really what the journey has been. So my journey is far from over. I still feel like I just finished university. I feel like I'm in my 20s, that the journey is only beginning. So I hope that gives you a good overview.
Fascinating. I didn't know all the journey, and I thought it was the PhD first and then the MBA, but now I found out it's the reverse. Very interesting. I'm glad that you shared that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
So it's interesting. Yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree about finding your voice and the resilience. There's a lot of colleagues that I've met through PhDs, not just in the same in the biological side, but in other places that they really love the aim of their research, but then going to the business seems like a nightmare from them, and they sometimes believe that they don't have the skills to go to the industry, but that's totally a wrong idea. And finding your voice is also something that, I think the fact of questioning yourself and overthinking what you're doing and when you are writing and so on makes you the right questions to move forward in what you wanted to do or what you don't need to do. So I think deeply everything that I do is because of the grad school, and and the whys and the hows are made us more persistent, and the challenges. Absolutely. I think that people are like to go for the challenge, because you see like the experiment doesn't work, you need to repeat it over, you forget something, and then you have to
exactly.
But I also find out in the transition from the academy to the from the entrepreneurial side, that even I was able to do those things, I didn't have my own voice per se on the fact of sharing. Like I was, I think from my journey, I won't say everybody, I was looking for more approval, and you need the approval, you need the backup of smart people, you're like the mentors and things like that.
Yeah.
And when you are alone or as a founder, like you have to stand for yourself. And then on the way of that, I had to be more independent from the approval of other people, and just, be able to share your life, and you create your own values, because academia have their own values. And I'm not there anymore. And I have to create my own values and what I stand for. And that was a challenge also for me, and made me grow a lot. So
yeah. And it's a lot of people get trapped into that fear, the fear of failure and the fear of standing out alone, standing for what you really believe in or what you feel, where you see something is not right, but I don't want to rock the boat too much. And so it's easier to fit in rather than to stand out from the crowd. But I always thought that, when I started blogging, that I would get like pounded on by, all the experts and the academics, and that, I would get like hate mail and everything. Nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happened. So all these wars and fears are all in our own heads. And there's nothing, wrong. I mean, of course, you need to be able to stand, because if you flip-flop the whole time, that is not going to be good. So as long as you can say something with conviction and you stand by it, I do believe that more people, especially women, and especially in nutrition, because I think we know that science is not perfect. And we know that, people are not perfect, but it's how you translate it that, can make a difference. But if you're going to fall into the exact same messaging, people switch off. People don't want to hear, because maybe what you're going to say they already know, or you don't have any fresh angles or ideas. And so if you wanted to stand out, and I think that's where you do it very well, because I think nutrigenetics, of course, is the area that I first became interested in from a Crohn's disease perspective, so IBD perspective. And I think, there's a lot of how can I say, discussion still around the topic. So what I've seen firsthand is that it can be life-changing for somebody who hears, that there's a new science emerging, that this is what some of the science points to, and people like to hear that kind of, what the advances have been, because what I learned at university in nutrition had changed completely. Most of it has changed over the last year. So nutrition is a science that keeps on evolving, and it should. And just like personalized nutrition, it will keep on evolving because it should. But has the way that we are speaking about nutrition and the advances in science, technology and society actually changed the way we portray ourselves and how we voice our opinions? What is your perspective on that?
My perspective is that yes, we need technology in order to stay informed, and I would say that it's a lot. I think it's a lot of work to do still, but what we have now. It's enough to a good start, and it's. That is helping people, but there is a lot of fear towards technology from different sides. I mean, from my own journey, like from the day that I started hearing about uncovering your DNA, it was not fear, like it was as I just say, like love at first sight. But I find that many people are like, I don't want to be controlled. This is gonna stress me, or the bliss of ignorance, like, no, I don't want to check myself out. I don't want to go to the doctor. I don't want to know. I don't want, and they neglect their own health. So I embrace, and I love technology. I like the futurisms and things like that. I'm always been very open-minded with that. So the communication, as you said, like needs to be, very clear and perspective, but I also don't want to lose, because what I observe from some companies and so on is male view, like, there is this science fiction that feed their minds of some people, and they think about monsters, like these transgenic things, and very like that, and that fits the fantasy of what really is right now and how they help it. And break it down and changing and calm the fear. It's an emotional work that I don't think companies are doing. And they are putting also another side of like, you have to be like a superhuman and stronger and competitive and first like that. And it's also not the narrative that some people really carry on. Really,
Yes.
I don't think it's something that I really wanted to really, like marketize with.
Yeah.
More than, loving yourself, understand your body better, and so on. And sometimes even back to your roots, sometimes with all the things that happen in contemporary with history and the industries, we forget about the roots of things. So yeah, this is a long conversation about it. But before parting with that, I wanted to make this question about what do you think are the struggles or the obstacles that women have in science that you perceive?
Yeah. I mean, I let's put it this way. I think there are loads of struggles. And I think, again, coming back to your voice, if there are less women, then, there are also less voices. And those who have those who are in science, might not be as confident, or not everybody's as confident to speak up. So I do think that women have an important role, but we are still a very small section or community, especially that think interdisciplinary. So I think we have great scientists who are very good and very deep and, are worldwide experts in this. But what we need in order to make an impact is to think like that. So we need, the lab to understand what happens in behavior change, what happens with retailers, how do we make it so that the science that is done is representative of the real world and other problems that need to be answered. Because many people that I speak to, there's this push that you should do a master's, you should do a PhD, because that's your kind of your career trajectory. But then, it has nothing to do with real life, and you are working on somebody else's project because that's what they got funding for. And so so they have no interest in the topic, they have no love for it, and they have no need to go into it afterwards. And so I think we are in some cases developing high quality scientists that maybe are not passionate, or that have not met that sweet spot of what it is they are interested in, what they would like to be paid for, and what they are actually doing at the moment. And so that's where I think there's a big gap. And so we are certainly underrepresented. We certainly don't have enough, vocal voices. And I also think that there are already a lot of waves in the research community, I would say, in the academic community, because if you are not, you can't remote work, you can't do flexible working in a academic role, for example. And so that's where I think maybe also a lot of women drop off by the wayside who could have been great scientists if there was a more flexible and more modern approach towards integrating real life with how we work. And so I do expect the future to be a little bit more, to look different, and not the way that we certainly did it. And I also think that maybe I don't know how your degree was, but we did physics in first years because it was a physics degree, so we had to have some physics. And now I think back in physics, but I know physics is brain and everything, but really did I need to do first year physics? No, I probably would have loved to do computer science first year as part of the nutrition. So those are, I think, we need to rethink the curriculums of not only of how we train and how that then transitions into real life. And so I think there are big gaps for the future in terms of where we need to look at. But I think for women in science, we need to make it, especially, let's talk about specifically in health, we need to make the science work for us, simply because we are the ones that make most decisions about health and nutrition. And so those are the problems we need to study, right? That's the areas that we need to, so we see it firsthand, and we are the main carers of, whether it's elderly or the older population. And so we see where the gaps are. We know where the need is, and that's how the money should be channeled. That's how the funding should be channeled. But that, in my view, is certainly how the reality works. So I hope that for my daughter's case, that things will look different in a few years. I'm not sure she'll go into science, but certainly there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to do. I mean, it's huge. Maybe not solved in my lifetime. What do you think?
Hope so. Yeah, I always think very positively on the fact of, yes, there is a lot to do, and I really want to see my granddaughters, and probably in that stage when things are more smoothly from then, if they decided to enter to science. But I also put my hand on it, like how I can be proactive in order to make a voice or comment. So I don't, carry every day, but every opportunity I have to change their mind, or to say like, no, what you're saying, you have this bias, or this is not, open your mind to this. I take the chance everywhere I go, if from a coffee with my girlfriends, from, even if I'm waiting in a living room and I hear something, I just try to say like, no, this is another way to do it. So I open a space for these women who are coming, because my road is not easy, not easy at all. And even I had the passion and I had the hard work and so on. I had many struggles to, because of the way I look, or how I do things, or my pronunciation, or so on. So I think it's this is why I also, put it on hand, like the work on the bias, also the mindset and the bias of not just women that needs to, empower, but also men who are working next to us to, work them, do the half of the work in order to open more doors and opportunities for everybody. Because this is not like a competence, like who is better than the other ones. It's basically everybody's gonna win at the end. Everybody's gonna win if we open their minds and do the work, because there's a lot of work to do. I think women in science, as you said, like the fact of choosing is good. And I think you come from a perspective of, I think the Netherlands, of Europe, which is also already advanced for women, because when I moved over there, I had to work a lot on myself to there's a way to, like, when I thought myself as somebody who was very independent back when I was in Brazil, for example. But when I was in the Netherlands, I saw many strong women and explaining things, like very more independent, and I thought women could be possible, and I saw much freedom. That's a freedom that I claim wherever I go, but not every place can hold that freedom that I know it's possible for me. But in Latin America, there is a lot of struggles of men taking women seriously, or and how they do business, or how they, there is a lot of work to do in the basics of respect. And then when you go farther, it's like you can see that there is a point when women are very educated, highly educated, but they are not taking the seat of the leading part. And that is why, like, what it is. And it's because when you are in the and I guess you do it very frequently, that's my question, and that's something that I start learning, and I think you have more experience when you are in with the heads or the CEOs, totally thinking business mind, and trying to come to with a more hard decision, more like, okay, not, I understand that profit is really important, but think about other options. For example, when I talk with CEOs about, well, I need your product in Spanish because I can recommend this, and how we can work this, I understand this, I can translate how we can, and they are not interested because this is like, okay, I'm not going to have many clients in a short term. So, this is a mentality that is not generating progress. And if I want to represent or like thinking about Latino America sometimes, or things like that, there's sometimes a close-minded thing, like, okay, no, but it's a matter of time, I think. And also, it's like that, like women in the leadership, in the big seats. And but I was really lucky that in my journey I found 3 or 4 women who inspired me, who were like in a very leading position, since I was, for example, doing my summer
placement.
Yes, when I started to start doing the lab and things like that, I observed this, they were taking the lab, they were the heads of the lab and so on. And that made me, as a young woman, inspired that I could do it. I could do it. I could see it. I could be the head. I could change it. And I spent a lot of time observing them, like what they do, how they do it, more than men, because that is the rule. And that inspired me to, know that there is work to do. So what from your how it's from your view?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very interesting word, because when I worked in the hospital setting, I learned that speaking to maybe a patient or maybe the family is one way of speaking. But if you have to go and speak to a surgeon, for example, to say, maybe this patient is at risk, or maybe we should do a particular kind of an intervention, something like that, tube feeding or something, which is, of course, more invasive. You have about 5 seconds to grab that surgeon's attention. So I learned that if you speak, you have to be able to find the keywords or the key things that will make them switch on. Otherwise it doesn't work. So for a surgeon, those words tend to be, they listen to you talking, hi, I'm the dietitian, and then you say, well, this patient is malnourished, they're going to get an infection. What infection? What they're going to what? So it's things like infection, length of stay, complications with surgery. Those are the things that make the surgeon wake up and listen. If you speak to the gastroenterologist, you say, hi, I'm the dietitian. If you say gut pain or not absorbing, what? All of a sudden they switch on. And so I applied that same learning to the business, that it doesn't really matter how smart you are or how well, scientific, papers you can. If you don't use the right words in those first 5 kind of seconds to grab their attention. So it's not about, the product, but how can you convince them within those 5 seconds that this is the business opportunity? Not that they should do it. It's not that what they should do and what they don't have. It's what is the opportunity for you and what are you missing out on? Then you have it. Then all of a sudden you get, the sparks go on and the eyes open. And then, so that's what I've kind of learned, that, it doesn't matter. I sometimes see people saying, oh, I did my PhD at, this university and this Ivy League. Consumers don't care. This student, they just care. What can you do? How can you do it better, faster, cheaper, and, stand out from the crowd? That's what they care. If you can do it in 5 seconds, your business will stay. That's what I've learned. So I have learned, that communication is really key, but it's not just communication, because anybody can talk. Maybe anybody can talk well, present well, but you need to be able to find what is it that will spark that person. Not everybody in the room, the person that matters, or the 2 people that matter. And that's really the key, I feel. And so I do think we have a lot of work to do, but I think, yes, having role models is great. But I actually think we are the role models now. If we look back, people are looking at us going, hey, Those are the people. And so it doesn't matter if you're not, high up or running the big, huge tech companies, whatever. From where we've come, if we look back, we are already role models. And that's what we need to remind ourselves of, that looking back at where our mothers and grandmothers have come from, we've already made great advances. And we should be proud of that, and we should celebrate that. And therefore, we should elevate more women to become that voice. And so we should grow, but we should, like you do, like every day, just talking about it. But because perceptions are not going to change that quickly, but we've already made huge strides in where we are right now.
Exactly. I keep my eye on myself also, because it's also, there is a lot of ingrained roots, beliefs that are, wrong, and about sexisms, about racisms and things like that. And I, observe things from one side or another. I don't try to, like confront people. I just more like, like try to, what if you make another question? What if you question things in another way? So you start like thinking and like, okay, yes, maybe. Also, what I find out that with academia is that, and working with genetics, there is a lot of misconceptions about genetics, and there's a lot of damage that history caused. And I spend my time reading a lot about it in order to, be open and be open to communicate with everybody and what they are, because for me, probably I take it for granted. And I also find out that this person can be smart, can be the head of the university, all the PhDs, all the things like that. Very smart person with high IQ, but still can be racist. Still can have those biases that this person didn't work on. Absolutely. And that's challenging, because even you can say, look, no, I'm not. This person it is. This person can say like, no, I'm not sexist. I love women, but they are, they share. And that's the challenging part, when somebody cannot see themselves and making work. I don't know if you took, but long time ago, when I was around 18 or so, there was, I don't know, maybe it's still online, you could took a test of your subconscious mind by Harvard, and if find out if you have some trace about, if you are racist, or you are, homophobic and things like that, several tests. And I took it back on the days because I was 18, 19, so like, no, I don't, I see everybody, I don't have anything, I love everybody. But when I took the test, there was a lot of misconceptions that it was very ingrained, and I couldn't perceive, because probably I get it before I was 6 years old. And when I'm reading the book, it's also like, it's things that you don't know. And since then, I'm working towards that. Like I'm on myself, because that's what I can do, and when I can work with other people. But start with your own work and start changing. Like, okay, I see, perceive myself. And when I create a narrative which is more open-minded, or which I did in grad studies, some people are like, especially when they're two Caucasians, like because they didn't work towards their own conscious biases. And that was challenging, and I still like wanted to educate people about that, like their own awareness towards that. I don't know what's your view on that.
No, it is, of course, for me it was very again, coming back to my childhood, because although I was born in South Africa, I didn't grow up in South Africa, and so I didn't have that conscious bias already. I knew I was different because I was the only Black kid in the class, the only Black kids in school, and I thought everybody didn't live in their own country. I thought everybody's father was doing a PhD and had the mother who stayed at home. And so, but then when we went back to South Africa, of course, by that stage I was 12, I had a hard time understanding why we lived in a separate area, why we lived in a segregated area, why we only could go to particular schools, why I had to stop music lessons and stop gymnastics and stop all the things that I loved to do when I was a kid. But then I realized that those two worlds that I then was exposed to helped me to question at every turn what my biases were. And I think my realization is that everybody holds biases, every single person. And so, but how you act on that and check in with yourself and not say, hey, I'm not, and become defensive about it. But you also need to surround yourself with people who say, hey, that was not very cool, and hey, that was actually very insulting, and talk about your hair or your nose or your body shape or your that you have an accent. All these different things are really little snide remarks that come from a very innocent point of view from the other person who doesn't know. But my upbringing has helped me to say, no, actually, I know I hold biases. I'm not going to say, hey, I'm in personalized nutrition. I hold biases. Whether I know of them or not, I do. I admit it. I hold biases. And so, but being aware of them, I think, is more important in your everyday life, to make sure that you keep on doing that check and think, hey, did I just say something? Did I just do something? Because not everybody's going to tell you, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And so I think that is the message that we need to carry. But I think one of the other things we also discussed before was this concept of multiculturalism, because I think that falls nicely into kind of what we are talking about. What does multiculturalism kind of mean to you? To me, that means exactly this thing to me about being born African, but having grown up European, and thinking maybe in my head that somehow I maybe was European, but I wasn't. And and then going back, and then they say, no, you're not South African. You are really European. They always told us you're the Dutch kids, but we weren't Dutch. We were South African. And then of course, it's a complete screw up for the mind, because essentially you don't know who you are. But then I went to Stellenbosch University, which traditionally was a very white university, very, very conservative university. We had a target, or the university had a target for our course. We were only allowed 4 non-Caucasians on the course for dietetics, and I was one of them. And so that gives you an idea of what I was going into. But you know what? I had the best time at that university, because I believe that my perspective was different. I didn't come into the university thinking people are going to be nasty, they're going to be racist, they're going to treat me badly. I had none of that. And so I do feel very bad for the people who grew up in South Africa, went to the university, had a very bad experience, because I had a very good experience, And so I do think this perception of multiculturalism, because of my upbringing, opened my eyes. And so to me, that exposure is very important to build, a healthy community, a healthy family, a healthy, everything. So that does make a huge difference. And you've also traveled everywhere. So.
Yes, I did, and I have to, and I did it just by myself. Like, I didn't carry my family, which is another layer of challenge. But the thing is, for me, multiculturalism, as you said, is put it in. Most of the people think about multiculturalism about being in a room with different people from other cultures or other ethnicities and just working on getting along. But I'm going deeper, like two layers deeper, on the fact that yes, you can be in a room with people in different things, but still seeing things vertically or hierarchically, or these layers. Yes. And that is when you start taking off these labels and seeing more human things, more horizontal, when you just connect in another level. And that's where I see myself, because I did spend time years in Brazil, in the Netherlands, in Canada, and the United States, obviously in Peru. And I did have to adapt to each country or each culture, I would say. I put myself very into the horizontal part and connect with the language, with what we're doing, what we're eating, and making friends and studying together and working together. And that gave me a wide view of what means to be a human, you know, like the emotions, the struggles, the values, how they see the world, what they stand for as a city, as a country, and so on. And it's deeper than just you know, sharing and seeing the screen, because when you work in most of the people that, yeah, I'm multicultural because I'm in my own hometown and I have people from other places, and sometimes we share, you know, like a coffee and so on, but it's not. It's basically when you have to survive with them and, you know, make everything as them, and you know, like adapt totally. That's where I come from when I say I'm multicultural. I had to take all those layers and challenge my beliefs also, not from religion, political, and any other things, in order to, you know, say like, yeah, maybe they are right, you know, maybe I was close-minded, or maybe this is another way to think. And that's where I opened my mind, and, you know, I challenged myself. I was very lucky because I was this open myself, like I was well received with people, with the, you know, the people who were innate from them, and, you know, from to their homes, to their parties, to their studies. So I was able to connect with them. And that's why I just say, like, I don't belong to one place, because I love people all around the world, because I really connect with them. I make a good friendships and so on. So yeah, that's where the multiculturalisms come from. It's more like this deeper connection of human to human.
Then how do we translate that into, you know, personalized nutrition? What do you think the industry needs to learn in terms of multiculturalism? Because I mean, you see it also on, you know, in the clinic. So, you know, what is needed? What does industry? What can they learn from? Because at the moment it's not. Let's face it, it's not.
Yes.
we need to do a much better job, and not needs to happen. But what needs to happen for the industry to embrace more multiculturalism?
First of all, understand there are several layers, from the science part and the social part, because both are part of what means human, what means personalized nutrition, and, you know, be in front of your food, something that's going to reach you. So from the layer of genetics and science and so on, we need more studies for a diversity. Like they concentrate, and all the results are from one side. I won't say that we're too different, but we might need to challenge the numbers again. I don't think it's going to be a tremendous variation, so on, but it's still, like, it's going to be things that we might need to uncover, or might need to reframe it for people who were not studied, were not included. That would say. And the other part of nutrition, it's, you know, the cultural part. Food, it's a lot of culture, and people feel proud where they come from. And food, it's part of you, you know. It's, for me, it's a celebration. Food everywhere, like, what do you eat? They take it like so personal, like it's me, and you need to try my food, and a way to welcome you. So when you say something, like you give it advice, and, you know, you see the report and so on, and it's more Americanized or North Americanized in my case, or European thinking, and you cannot find those foods here. People say, like, okay, they feel outside, you know. And or even if even if they are inside of their own in North America, they feel like, okay, there's a part that I need to, you know, close in order to be healthy, or they question themselves or their identity, because DNA is also question your identity, you know. You have to. So for me, would say, you know, they need to embrace the other side, the social part of where they are, how they come from, what people like, and that's part of personalized, what makes the people happy, what makes people change human behavior, and so on. So it needs some studies to understand what could be a middle point, understand the ingredients and the flavors, a little bit like that, in order to make it more familiar. I think long term it could be possible. And from the social side, I would say also how you give the information to the person. there's people who like things direct, it's straight to the point, and there's people who might need more emotional journey and things like that, and so on. And that's in my case for women, I do that support of, like there is a lot of fear sometimes to understand their DNA, what's the thing, and how, and the narrative needs to be changed, because I think that the first associations about genetics, one of them is like, okay, so the genes are there to make me like to develop a disease, and that's totally wrong. Genes are there for maintain you healthy. Most of them work every time, 24/7 to stay healthy. So it's a wrong misconceptions. And also genetics is about, familiar diseases and something is wrong and crime and things like that. So I'm working to clean that up, because for me, genetics is happiness. It's just, like understanding yourself more, love yourself more, take care of yourself in a more precise way. Prevention is something that also that I love. So we need to reframe, and I don't think some people are really going to that, like reframing that. They want to compete and I'm more like collaborate and things like that. So that's how I take it for the.
Fantastic. Well, I think we had a great conversations already an hour. So tell us what you are working on, anything exciting projects, anything learning anything new. What are your plans for this year?
Well, first of all, I'm writing a book about the human identity based on, like, it's more, I felt like everybody who thought about what it means to be human is very, like, maybe Eurocentric or male perspective or conquer perspective, but I was born in Latino America, so I'm kind of writing what it means to be human from a DNA perspective, female perspective. So that's one of my projects. And maybe also embrace this in a bigger mindset with, I'm working one-on-one, but I think to do it in a group, or maybe challenge other companies to think in another way. What about you? Where are your plans?
So we continue to work on becoming that hub for data and insights in personalized nutrition. We keep on learning. And of course, adding to our database of, not only companies, but also insights in industry. I think this year is going to be a defining year for AI, AI and machine learning. And so for me, the ethical aspect of AI and that, like we said, the societal impact is huge for me. I think it's very important. It's only going to become more important. And I think we need to have our fingers in the pie very early on before it causes, havoc, if we look back. So what Kina, really, what I'd like Kina to be really, at the front and really leading and being the voice for the industry, and so that we make sure that everybody does benefit. And that's probably, I think, going to be one of the key things for this year. So I'm looking forward to it, and I look forward to learning a lot more, and of course, connecting with a lot more, women scientists, entrepreneurs who are rocking and shaking the industry for sure. So it was great chatting. Where can the listeners find you?
You can find me in the LinkedIn, Magnolia, and you can find me at genesandwellness.com. And I have social media and Facebook and so on. So you can feel free to reach me for any topics if you want the service, or if you want to talk about women in science or any other topic. Looking forward. Thank you. It was really lovely.
I'm Mary Abrams. You can find me at kina.tech and on LinkedIn as well. Thank you so much, Magnolia. Great chat. See you soon.
Thank you so much. See you.
Take care. Bye.